John Healey, what do we know about this dreadful incident at Huntingdon?
Well, the facts are still emerging overnight. My team's been in close contact with the Home Office team. This is close to home. This was the very service that my wife and I, Jackie, took just a few hours before this attack. It's the service I use every week to get home to Rotherham. So I can't begin to imagine how shocked and frightened those passengers were, and a huge tribute to those passengers and the emergency services for their response, because it could have been so much worse. But we know that 10 people are in hospital, 9 are very seriously injured with potentially life-threatening conditions. And we know the police are investigating, supported by the counter-terrorism police. And we need to avoid speculation. We need to let them get on and do that job. And make no mistake, the Home Secretary will update the public just as soon as we have any further facts, and the police will do the same.
Well, I know that we are enjoined, I think this is the right thing, not to speculate. But with the fact that there are 2 arrests rather than a lone person, the fact that this resembles some other things that have happened in the past, and the fact that the counter-terrorism police are involved, suggests at least that still the possibility that this is a terrorist attack is still open. Is that right?
Well, those are all suppositions. The early assessment is that this was an isolated incident, an isolated attack. So there's no reason for the rest of us not to get on with our lives, get on and travel to the places we need to get to. But those sorts of conclusions, those firmer assessments and that information will be provided to the public as soon as we've got them.
That's true, but is this affecting the security alert status at all?
No, the threat is substantial. It reflects a period of really increasing pressure on our country and uncertainty more widely in the world, a new era of threat, if you like. It's why, for me, the new era for defence that we're leading as a new government is so important. It's part of making sure that we are in a Britain that is safe at home, strong abroad. And our defence services and our intelligence agencies do a remarkable job that the public often just never see or hear about to keep us safe.
This is an important point, isn't it? That we are in this era of uncertainty, but I think that in the past we've tended to think that that uncertainty plays itself out somewhere else. But it is now happening on British soil. Are we now in a new situation?
We are in a new era of threat, undoubtedly. We've seen this from the sort of cyber attacks that have hit some of our big corporations, from Jaguar Land Rover to Marks and Spencer's. I see this now from the extent of the cyber attacks launched against defence every year. In the last year, the 90,000 separate attacks that we can link to other states. We can see this with the menacing of our critical infrastructure that's under the seas. So threats are no longer, and potential conflict and uncertainty is no longer the traditional type of warfare in some country miles away that few of us have heard of. And that's really why it was so important as a new government. We commissioned the Strategic Defence Review. We published it in June. And it tells us for defence that we have to do more to make our military ready to fight, better able to deter. We have to do more to reinforce those homeland defences, and we have to do more with allies, which is why we've got this commitment to lead in NATO and NATO first, because allies in the end are our guarantee of strength for the future.
That is the issue that you have to deal with as Defence Secretary, threats from other states. And I want to come on to defence in a moment. But after London Bridge, after Southport, after the attack at the synagogue in Eaton Park, and now this, the impact on the public here is really, I suppose, the feeling of the risk of random attacks. You said yourself that you take this train as a matter of routine. So people go out doing their ordinary business and now in a place where perhaps they feel at risk. What is the message to the public about that change in, if you like, in the environment in which we carry on our everyday lives?
Well, for me, the British public are basically, we're pretty tough, pretty resilient. We're not going to be deflected from carrying out our everyday lives, and that's right. I don't want people to feel that they can't or they shouldn't, and they will. But I think it requires us all to be more vigilant about our electronic devices, about the risk of cyber fraud and cyber attack, and just be more vigilant for looking out for others around us.
All right. Can I just talk to you about a couple of stories of the week? Did the Chancellor mislead the Prime Minister, whether deliberately or inadvertently, about her home rental?
No.
Well, she had to write a second letter, didn't she?
Yeah, of course it would have been better if all the facts were established right at the start, but she responded immediately. She was alerted to the problem. She informed the Prime Minister. She rectified the lack of a licence and referred her own case to the independent advisor on ministerial standards, and he said, look, there was nothing that was done in bad faith, there's no further action needed, and that remains the Prime Minister's view.
I was struck, though, by the tone of the Prime Minister's reply to her second letter, in which he basically said, it would have been a good idea if you'd sorted it out and told me the whole truth in the first letter. I mean, in the past, that would have been pretty much grounds for resignation, wouldn't it?
No, of course it would have been better if they'd managed to get all the information together in one go, but I think she wanted to act immediately, which she did. And you can't make I really don't think you can make comparisons with the past. I mean, if you look at what happened under the Tories, you had the independent ethics advisor saying that someone like Priti Patel had breached the ministerial code. Boris Johnson refused to take any action, and it was the advisor that resigned and lost his job.
Well, you see, I let you go through that, John Healey, because on all those cases, you know what you would have been saying? Resign. You would have been saying, and you did say, shout at them across the dispatch box, one rule for them, one rule for everybody else, time to resign. How come it's so different for when you make pretty much the same level of error?
Totally different. The independent advisor in a case like Priti Patel said she'd breached the ministerial code. The independent advisor in Rachel's case said, look, this was inadvertent.
Priti Patel was cleared. Angela Rayner, Louise Haigh, they've had to resign. Tulip Siddiq, Rushanara Ali. Come on.
These things happen in government. You know, you remember the 13 years of a Labour government. The test is how a Prime Minister responds. And at the outset of this government, Keir set new standards for ministerial conduct. He gave the independent advisor new powers.
And the way he is responding is exactly the reverse of the way he wanted the Tory Prime Minister to respond. He would say, week after week, why is that person still in office? Get rid of them. You're weak. Why isn't he getting rid of his Chancellor?
Because the advisor has said there's an inadvertent error, there is no cause for further action. Okay. The Prime Minister's taking his recommendation, and this is an independent advisor with new powers because of a new Labour government and a Prime Minister determined to raise the standards in public life that people have a right to expect of us all.
All right. Standards in public life. Will the government legislate to remove Andrew Mountbatten Smith from the line of succession? I beg your pardon, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. Sorry, Smith is the ordinariest name I could think of. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor.
Look, in all the actions the government is taking, and this is largely for the royal family, we're being guided by the judgment and decisions of the King.
But if the King said, would you pass a one-clause bill to take him out of the line of succession, the government would respond positively? Well,
look, that's a matter for the King. In the case of the field of defence, which is obviously my responsibility, again, we're being guided by the King. We've seen Andrew surrender the military positions that he's had, and we're looking now at the one remaining position he has, which is the Honorary Vice Admiral position, and we've got a process underway for that.
Oh, when you say the process underway, what exactly is that process? And by the way, would you personally, to be honest, like to see him out of all of these positions, including line of succession?
Look, my personal view is neither here nor there. We've seen him surrender the range of military positions that he had, which are proud positions the royal family occupies, and those who serve in the regiments, the squadrons that have our royals at as their figurehead are very proud to do that. And there's a remaining vice admiral position that we're being guided by the king, and we're now looking to remove.
All right, look, the reason I dwell on all of this is, in a way, to talk about the mood of the nation as we approach the budget. Your colleague Wes Streeting last week said that there is a growing sense of despair in Britain. Do you agree with him?
No, I don't actually. Look, there's a sense of times are still tough. There's a sense of impatience for the sort of change that people voted for 15 months ago. But people are recognising there are more appointments in the NHS now. They're recognising, particularly if they're low paid, that they've had a record increase in the wages. They're recognising that we've had 5 interest rate cuts since the election. And in my field, they're also recognising that this is a government, for instance, this week, delivering an £8 billion export deal for British fast jets to Turkey. And that's going to support 20,000 jobs over the next few years around the UK. So they can see a government, not just in the Treasury, but in other departments like mine, looking to drive economic growth, because in the end, that's going to make the difference to their living standards.
Well, I hope you'll tell the Health Secretary that. Let's just fast forward through the bit where you say to me you're not going to second guess the Chancellor. But let me ask you whether when the Chancellor puts forward her budget, let me ask you this. Labour promised not to increase income tax, not to increase national insurance, not to increase VAT. Does the government and Prime Minister still stand by those promises?
That's a pretty creative way of saying, John Healey, what's the content of the budget in 3 weeks' time? It is.
No, it isn't. I didn't ask you anything about what the budget would say. I asked you, let me repeat, Labour promised not to increase income tax, not to increase national insurance, not to increase VAT. Does the government and Prime Minister still stand by those promises?
Look, I did 5 years as a Treasury Minister. I did a number of budgets, autumn statements, finance bills. Every budget, it's what a budget does, looks at tax and spending. And what this budget will also do is look at what we're doing to drive economic growth, because in the end, that's the way that we lift the country and people's prospects for the future.
Yeah, we've known each other a long time, and you know what I'm asking you? I'm putting to you the words of your own manifesto, and I am asking you whether you stand by the manifesto today, Sunday, the 2nd of November.
And that's for the budget, and that's for the Chancellor to announce at the end of the month.
So what you're actually telling me is that right now you can't say with any certainty that you stick by your budget, by your manifesto promise.
No,
that's what you're telling me.
I'm telling you that it'll be the Chancellor announcing the measures in the budget at the end of the month.
I haven't asked you about the budget at all. I've asked you about the thing that you put to the British people, whatever it is now, 15 months ago, and whether you still stand by that promise.
What I can tell you is that you will see this budget building on what we've done already in 15 months as a government, sticking to the fiscal rules, because that's the way that we can lower borrowing costs in the long term, taking measures to help people with the cost of living pressures that they face, but above all, looking to drive stronger economic growth in the economy, because that's the thing that has hobbled Britain for the last 14 years of the Tory government.
OK, you know, back in July, the Prime Minister... you lot cheered like nobody's business when asked the same question, and he said, yes. Ha, got you, Kemi. This week, he couldn't repeat that, and you now can't repeat that. So I suspect most of the country will take that as, no, we're not going to stick to our promise. Well, that's clear.
Look, we're 3 or 4 weeks away. No decisions have been taken.
I haven't asked you about the budget.
Even the Office of Budget Responsibility hasn't produced its final figures. But what we do know, is that they now see the deep damage and scarring to be much more serious than previously thought. A combination of years of cuts, COVID, and a really slow economic growth over 14 years.
All right.
So there are consequences. Things do change, and we'll have the announcements that are needed to deal with those challenges in the budget.
The only reason I'm hurrying you along is that I want to be fair and ask you about your own announcement today. You're promising
Keen to do it. Come, let's move to it.
Yeah, you're promising new housing for veterans. When you were last in that chair, you told me that the Ministry of Defence was going to make some space, disused bases available for illegal immigrants. Who's going to get the accommodation first, veterans or illegal immigrants?
Now, let me come to asylum seekers separately, because what we're making today is not and tomorrow we will set out a defence housing strategy, isn't for veterans first and foremost. It's for those who serve in our forces now and the families support them.
Yes, you're correct. Forgive me.
And this is the biggest change in commitment to armed forces housing for nearly 50 years. You've seen, in the first 6 months of this government, us put an end to the biggest failed Tory privatisation and buy back 36,000 military homes into public ownership. Now we're making the investment, £9 billion over the next decade, to bring those homes up to scratch. And at the same time, we're going to be supercharging the development of new housing, including for veterans, including for those who serve on surplus defence land for the period ahead. So that means that we can upgrade 9 out of 10 of the family homes that our military use. We can likely rebuild 14,000 of those. Okay. And we can put an end to the Tory scandal of military families living in homes that are damp, mouldy, leaky, the very last thing our service personnel should expect and deserve from this country.
May I just ask you quickly one last question? This is perhaps a slightly personal question. As you know, my family comes from Guyana next to Venezuela. President Trump says he's prosecuting a war against drugs in the Caribbean, and there's some suggestion that he might invade Venezuela. Would we support that invasion?
Look, that's a matter for President Trump and the US. I'm willing to take him at face value for what he's doing at the moment and the action he's taken, and we'll keep in close contact with him.
Oh, so we might be open to support in the way we might have done in the past if there were some invasion against the Maduro regime?
I can't see any circumstances in which he's likely to ask for our support, but we are where we are at the moment, and President Trump says he's waging a war on drugs in South America.
John Healey, thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you.